about demystifying Web 3.0. And let's get into today's agenda. Uh, if you guys cannot hear me or anything of the sort, anyone has any concerns, questions, please feel free and pop that in the chat. Today's agenda is going to have an introduction on Web3, what is Web 1, 2, 3, what's the difference, what's a blockchain, exploring the on-chain ecosystem, the common terminologies, the use cases, MetaMask, and one hands-on demonstration as well. So one thing to be noted is that during this course of 5 webinars that we are going to be conducting, this will include both theoretical and practical knowledge with small tasks, making it interactive. We will also have Q&As and industry leaders and entrepreneurs that will be joining us to tell us a bit more and in essence give us a real-time view of what goes on in the industry. All right. So our first guest speaker, Muhammad Ahmed, he's a tech evangelist. He's a full stack engineer at TechRow Digital and a very beloved mentor at the Empeer community. He is also, I would call, an expert on EVMs and Hyperledger Fabric, infrastructure and emerging technologies. Ahmed loves basketball and football and has a developing interest in video games and animes. Um, Without further ado, Ahmed, you can take it over. And if I have missed out anything in the introductions part, please feel free and introduce yourself. Thank you.
So thank you so much, Gain, for the warm welcome. So I guess you have covered everything. So basically, I'm just a techie, you can say. So without further ado, let's move to the topic on hand. Yeah. So basically, this webinar 1 would be more focused on like the basics of Web 1, Web 2, and Web 3. So what we are going to start with how the web was from the starting. So when the internet started, uh, that era, what we called, is known as Web 1, or you can say static web. Basically, this is like the read-only era. There was a web page hosted on some server, and you would just go there and download that web page and view that information. So this was like the promotional websites, newspapers. You can say that say it as like it was a digital brochure, era of digital brochure. And then we move on to the Web 2 era. Web 2 era is like the interactive web. The communication is also known as like the social era or the social space. So in this era boomed with Facebook mostly, and apart from other websites as well. So what we do is that a user generated content was also put on the website. You go to the website, you see some data or you see some information, and what you do is you provide your own information on that website so that others can also view. So this becomes an era of interactions. All of the websites that we see nowadays are Web 2.0. So today we are moving on towards the Web 3. Web 3, we will discuss this point, these jargons you can see later in the webinar as well. But what the main aspect of this Web 3 is that we are more focused toward user centered controlled, you can say. So instead of having one server, what we have is that we have multiple servers as well, and those are controlled by individuals instead of a central authority. So in this way, we can also share the data, but no one body is able to hold that data or control over that data. So let's move to the next slide. So this is like just I said, what blockchain is. Blockchain is just a network of nodes. you know this If we just consider this network of nodes, you would say that, oh, okay, there's already a lot of thing going on over in the world as well. Let's say we have the, you can say, horizontal scaling. We have a term in horizontal scaling for development of like scalable applications. So what we do is that we scale the application. We, instead of having a one server, we have multiple servers that serve your request, that serve your data. So how is blockchain different to this? The key aspect here is the decentralized. Let's talk about, if we say, let's Facebook or Meta. Meta has a lot of servers, but all of those servers are owned by Meta. So in the digital Web3 age, we can do, we what we are doing is that there, instead of one authority controlling them, these nodes are all decentralized. And what each of these nodes have is just a ledger. A lot of you may have, who have business background, or who have studied financial accounting or something, you will know of ledger. Ledger is just a way of writing entries, that what happened this day, or what we did, this sale we did this. So we have this ledger, but what additionally blockchain provides is that this ledger is only append only. We cannot change the previous data of that ledger. If we say, let's say so a question comes to mind, so is the blockchain immutable? That when we talk about the blockchain is immutable, we does not say that the blockchain, we cannot edit any data in the blockchain. We can edit any data in the blockchain, but what we cannot do is that we cannot edit the previous data. So it is append only. Let's say I have a value 10. So if I want that value to go to 0, so I would have to append into the ledger that an entry that will be the transactions. I will have to append into that transaction that, okay, I have minus 10. So at the end of the day, I would have 0. So this way, what we have is that uh, this ecosystem builds up a trustable way of storing data that is tamper proof, so that we can ensure that the data cannot be tampered by a single person or an entity. If I am moving too fast, you can also pop that in the chat as well. Yeah. So now let's talk about some of the pros and cons of blockchain. So at the start, I have said that the blockchain is like decentralized and everything. So it also ensures transparency. But transparency is very, a whole uh, wide word. Like, we cannot say that everything is transparent in blockchain. We can, in transparency, what we can say is that everything is verifiable. Let's say you have a data that you do not want to show the data, but you want to ensure that the data is legit. So what we can do is that we can ensure that the data is verifiable but not transparent. So in this way, this transparency refers to the actions, that all of the actions that a user perform is transparent. And the trust, I guess Joe will also talk about trust later in the webinar. So the trust is like just ensuring that the system, we have to build a system in such a way that it is trustless, that we do not have to depend on a single person to ensure the trust. We create a mechanism. You can see over here, this is consensus. We will also talk about this in the next slide. So we create a mechanism to ensure that the system is trustless. So there is no ambiguity of what the data should be. And then the next, an amazing ability of blockchain is traceability. We can trace a person or any transaction back to the zero index, you can say. Like, we can ensure that we can uh, get to the depth of how this thing occurs. So traceability is a very powerful factor. And then we have censorship free. Now in today's day and age, we see that different organizations ban different sort of content in their relative to their own opinions and things. So the biggest example is like, nowadays, everything that is happening in the Palestine and Gaza, that is being censored to a huge level. So what blockchain can ensure is that there is a same algorithm for everything. there is no discrimination between one content or another content. And then with in era of in IT, or you can say in life as well, wherever there are pros there also are cons. So when we move to the blockchain, as we we have different nodes, and we have to ensure that everyone have the same data and the same security mechanism to be followed. So there is always relatively slow speed of blockchain than to the traditional systems. There have been many efforts to increase this speed, but if we talk about relatively, there will always be some speed, you can say some speed factor on the blockchain. And then if we move up to the upgradability issue, mm, I will not deep down into the upgradability issues, but you can say that as we as we are creating a separate ecosystem where we cannot directly edit something, we always have append to that. So whenever we create any smart contract, we'll talk about that later, what smart contract is. Whenever we create smart contract, or whenever we create any action or function, so we have to keep in mind how it should be upgraded throughout the time. Because it is we have to ensure that it could be upgraded down the road, sorry. And then the audience acceptance. This is why we are here today, talking about blockchain. So basically blockchain is like a mystery to many of the people. Something is just cryptocurrency, something is just jargons. So uh, we have to like communicate to different peoples. We have to ensure that we can actually get the actual ecosystem of the blockchain to all those young as well as the old traditional people, to get to know how this could be beneficial for their businesses. So this is a simple workflow of like proof of work blockchain. So I have taken this image from Geeks from Geek. You can will also be sharing these slides with you later in the group as well. You can also uh, take note from that. So basically, this is the simplified flow of how a blockchain works. A transaction is requested. A transaction could be anything. We could say this is like an simple instruction that is sent on the network, and that is then enveloped in a block. Multiple transactions are then contained into a single block. So so we can do batch processing, and then that block is sent to every node in the network. I wouldn't say every node, but I could say that every validator in the network. So every validator will receive this block and will try to validate this block. So this block, to validate this block, is like a very you can say computational heavy task. So what we can what nowadays, when Ethereum 1.0 was working on the proof of work consensus, so people will use to like pool the computation power to get the first to get the to be the first one to you know verify the block. So the whoever verifies the block first receives a reward for their work computation power, and then the block is added to the blockchain. So once a block is added to the blockchain, it we can see it on every other network. Joe will also demonstrate this to you as well, so that we can show we have a verifiable proof that okay, this thing happened. So moving on, this is just a basic concept just to wrap your head around how like blockchain secures things. Is that this is what we can say is like a chain of block or blockchain. We have this block connected to this one, and this block connected to this one. So what is the main essence is that the each of this block has a specific hash. This hash, you can say, is just like a code. It's just a fingerprint of what's inside the block. So for the first time, the block also contains the previous hash. For the first time, it would be like the 00 or dead address, you can say. And once it computes this, it creates this hash with some data. And then when the next block is created, it takes the hash from the previous block and the data inside the block and creates a new fingerprint. That new fingerprint is that block's hash, and so on. It is then connected to the third block. So what is the benefit of this is that, let's say an a malicious user tries to inject something in the block. So if a person, let's say in the block 2, I have a data that Ahmed's bank account is like $10. So if I maliciously change that to $100, so this fingerprint of this block would change. So this hash would change, and then the next block would also change because this hash is included in the next block. So the whole chain would break. So that ensures that the data that is inside a block always remain same. So now quickly I will be going over some of the terms, and then we can go to the use cases. So we have node that I have discussed before is just a computer that is connected to a blockchain. A computer that has the ability to compute something on the blockchain, or a node may not need to be the validator. A node is just some computer that is connected to the computer and can get data from that blockchain. Then we have Bitcoin and Ethereum. I'm sure everybody would have heard of Bitcoin at least. So Bitcoin is a coin, but basically what Bitcoin and Ethereum are some public blockchains. They are public and private blockchain as well. So these two are the most popular public blockchains apart from Solana. And then this is smart contract. Smart contract is just a piece of code, you can say. In JavaScript, you can say it's like a function, or if in object oriented or Java, you can say it's just a class with a bunch of methods that you can use to create some functionality. You can have a smart contract that just gives you an hello message. That could be a smart contract. Or you can have a smart contract that does some competitions, send some money from one place to another. That could be a smart contract. A transaction is, if I talk about a traditional web ecosystem, what we have is that request and response. Whenever we want to send request something from the server, we send a request and the server provides a response. In web3 we can mm, take that thing and rename it, or we can say it's a transaction. Transaction is just a command that we want to run. We want to say something, we want to do something. And then next, the wallet. This is the main important part that you will be interacting with. So wallet is just you can say an account and anything that identifies a user. It's basically made up of two things: the public key and the private key. And you need to make sure that you get this point right. So basically the public key is the address of your wallet, that is you can see, and the private key is the secret. So never reveal this secret to anyone. Whenever you create a wallet, you have to ensure that your private key is secure and it is never shared with anyone, so that it's like a password to your account. Anyone who has that private key can access your wallet. And then we have dApps. DApps is, you can say, decentralized applications. So these are just nothing but just applications that are connected to blockchain. So what differentiates from that is that they have no central authority controlling that specific part of the blockchain. That specific part that is connected to the to your application and the blockchain. So we will also be creating our very own app in our last webinar. So we can also, apart from this, we will also be creating some parts of the chunks of the dApp in our second and third webinar as well. So we can look forward to that as well. Now let's talk about the use cases. So I guess most of you would have used. I guess everyone here uses digital identity. How you say? I can, whenever we go to website, instead of creating our new email and address, what we do is that we log in with Google. So logging in with Google is that Google is providing a digital identity on our behalf. That okay, this person name is Muhammad Ahmed. He can log into this system. He has this. He has authorization to this email. Okay, or some other third party provider. So what blockchain but right now what we do is that our identity is tied to Google only. We cannot if somehow goes down, or somehow Google's prevent us to use that account, we cannot use log into our those accounts that are linked with Google. So for that, what we can do is in blockchain we have a concept of digital identity. There are websites that provide digital identity using the blockchain. One of the websites that provide this, or you can say application that provides this, is a self key named self key. You can create your wallet, and that wallet would be your the identity, and that wallet could be used anywhere on different websites where there is no web3 capabilities yet. So these kind of services are being provided by a lot of services, but self key is one of the top one that is providing this. And then in financial services, Joe will deep dive into the financial services. But I guess you have all heard of Bitcoin and all of the coins that are being traded. But apart from this, there are various large amount of ecosystem built on financial services. Like there is uh, ecosystem, you can say, an Aave. I guess I'm pronouncing it right, Aave, or double AVE. So these kind of platforms allow you to borrow or lend coins, or move coins from one exchange to another. So these kind of things. Then we have intellectual property. Intellectual property, the first thing that comes into my mind is that the stealing of memes and reels. There's always someone ranting about this was my meme that was stolen by someone, or something like that. So intellectual property, the uh, blockchain can be utilized to ensure this, that intellectual property is protected. There are now intellectual property rights organizations throughout the world, but that is out of the reach of a common person. So we can create an NFT or create an ecosystem where a person who whoever creates content can easily ensure that his content is copyrighted, or is uh, it always come back and point to that person. And now let's talk about healthcare. So healthcare is very uh, close to me, as I have my own final year project made in healthcare on the blockchain. So healthcare, many people think healthcare is just a small domain, and blockchain cannot uh, you know uh, get into this. But there is a very big issue in healthcare, that we have to carry our own documents everywhere. So if we talk about some elderly person, uh, we do not have history for, like, let's say up from 6 months or 1 year apart. We only have the most recent history. So what in healthcare blockchain can provide is that we can ensure that the data of all the patients is secured, is stored securely and maintained privately throughout a country, or you can say throughout the world. So there is a very big name medical change that is working with the NHS, National Health Services of UK, to create this ecosystem. And as Ryan mentioned in the start, that I have worked on Hyperledger Fabric, that is like an ecosystem to build your own private blockchains. So we can build our own private blockchain on a, you can say, country level, and then that blockchain could be used to used in different hospitals, public as well as private. You just have to go to that hospital, you scan your card, and all of your medical history is available over there. So let's move on to the next use cases. Real estate. Yeah, so I again relate back to most of the things to Pakistan. So in real estate, you can in Pakistan we have a lot of fraud in real estate. Like you can say a same file being sold to two people or multiple people, or you can say we have in you can say registry. We have a registry of some place else, but the actual place is somewhere else. So all of these issues. So blockchain can we can utilize blockchain to ensure that we can keep the digital record that cannot be tampered by anyone, either from within the authority or outside the authority. We just build the system in such a way that it can never be tampered. So this way we can also have a great influence on the real estate market as well. Now if we talk about voting, there's always so if we before we go to voting in real estate, there is also a big player named Propi that is working in the United States for the real estate, and provides it removes the intermediary that charges you, and take care of all of things, and at the end of the day, both the seller and the buyer gets a benefit on their prices as well. So next, if we move to voting, throughout the world, not just in Pakistan, throughout the world, there are always concerns about legitimate voting systems. So blockchain has proved itself in the voting space. It is used by I guess I forgot the name. It is Votes, Voatz, Votes, uh, and it has been used by the Ministry of by the state of I guess I have forgotten the state, but it has been used in. You can go to their website, and they will uh, right on the first page. They will show you that they have been in part in the municipal elections of United States, and they have done an election in a whole state and successfully captured a lot of market, in the elections. And then we have the market of supply chain. So supply chain is also there's also big players that are already working in supply chain on the blockchain. So we have like the IBM food track or something like that, I guess. Yeah, IBM food trust IBM food trust, that is working on on supply chain, and it has partnered with like Nestle and Walmart and major players in the supply chain to help ensure that the to prevent the uh, counterfeit products. So we can also, if I relate back to Pakistan, we can also use blockchain in our current industry of pharmacy, because there's a huge concerns on medicines that are counterfeit. So we can use supply chain management and blockchain to ensure that the medicine that reaches the customer is easily verifiable for the person. Now if we go to the gaming, mostly the young could easily connect with me on the gaming side. Like there are always, if we do gaming, there are always in-game assets. uh, you can say nowadays everything is microeconomics, or you can say every game is trying to sell you something in their game. But at the end of the day, this game, whatever you do on the game, uh, that's just inside that game. You cannot gain any actual value from that game. So there's a whole ecosystem named Engine. You can search that, Engine. Engine that is completely built for the game. They have released their own games as well, and uh, there are you can say in-game assets that you can purchase, and you can also sell them to others for the real money. So you don't have to stick to that one skin that you have in game. you can trade these skins and make sure that the money is flowing. So in this case, uh, we can also, if given a chance later down the road, we'll inshallah try and have a session on gaming and blockchain. We can create a like a small game on Unity or Unreal Engine and create an in-game economy on that. So I guess that is from my side, and I will now hand it over to Joe, who can like talk about the finances and everything as well. Thank you so much.
Everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Gene. Thank you, Ahmed. And my name is Joe. Quick background about myself. For 15 years, I've been a cloud architect at Accenture, and more recently, in the coming years, I've been working with Ahmed and the team at Empeer and Weiss and uh, I'm on building Skylark, which is our platform. It's a Web3 platform that focuses on creating quest and engagement for brands, communities, or even creators, influencers that want to engage their audience. So Skylark is a Web3 platform, and we'll be talking about more stuff about blockchain and Web3 in a second. And my interests are Formula One, basketball, and like Ahmed, I'm also into video games and anime. You can go to the next slide. So uh, Ahmed went through a number of use cases, but we're going to talk about specifically financial services today, right? And then we're going to go into actual demo to actually see how you can get a wallet and then actually get cryptocurrency on a test net and look at it on a block explorer, right? So first of all, what is money? What is currency? Right? We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about why decentralization is important. We're going to go through the problem, the Byzantine general problem, which is one of the origin stories for blockchain to exist, right? And we're also going to go into digital assets, which talks about fixing the money, right? Eliminating the double spend issue and establishing an immutable ledger. And then, like I mentioned before, we're going to talk about leveraging block explorers. Next slide, please. So here are some common terms that I'll mention as I'm going through. You can just take note of these intermediaries, right? Intermediaries are third party, they're middlemen, right? Like banks that facilitate transactions between two parties. Uh, Decentralization, as Ahmed highlighted, right, is the moving from a centralized path to having multiple entities, multiple participants take ownership of a network. And fiat currencies are what we typically spend today, right? Government issued currencies such as the US dollar or any other country currency that is spent around the world. These are things that are supposedly backed by physical commodity, not necessarily, well, they're no longer backed by physical commodities and they're only backed by the trust, quote unquote, trust of the government. And the Byzantine general problem, I'm going to highlight what that is, but it's a game theory issue that focuses on the ability to communicate information and ensure that all parties are on the same page. Hence the point that Ahmed was making earlier around the blockchain and having the chain be kept intact, right? And having the hashes be passed around. But the minute that you have an intrusion or a malicious actor, right? That breaks the chain. So but the Byzantine's general problem is focused around ensuring that that doesn't happen. And then trustless systems, right? Holding all things true when you have a great blockchain project or blockchain system in general, you're able to enable trustless applications where the system can operate without the participants needing to uh leverage a third party for trust because the platform's rules and protocols are handling it all. Next slide. Just some few more common terms. Immutable. If you hear me say that, that means that or if you heard Ahmed say that, that means the data on the blockchain is permanent. I'll talk more about the double spend problem, right? That means that today when account ledger, right, in today's world, there's an issue with the way accounting can happen because of the amount of time it takes to update the books. Oftentimes, it may re ris it may react in a way where may result in a way where we're double counting or double spending rather the same amount of money that was expended before, right? And Block Explorers is a tool where you can view transactions and activities on the blockchain, and blocks are, as Ahmed showed you, right? Those data structures that link together. And then finally here, gas fees are the transaction fees paid to operate and process transactions on chain. Next slide. So real quick, before we hop into the financial stuff, why decentralization, right? Ahmed went over a lot of this already, but all of our internet is fragmented across the internet. So when we can put that back into our hands, right, and put it back into our control and not have to rely on central systems, then it helps us maintain power when we think about going from service to service and potentially not having our ID, not having our records, right? Not having our resume details, that would be a bad thing, right? So when we can leverage the centralization to its optimal purpose, we're able to navigate the web in a more productive manner. Next slide. Okay, so Byzantine's general problem, right? I mentioned this earlier, but imagine that you and your 5 friends are in a circle, right? And you pass one message to your friend, and your friend passes that same message around the circle, right? And by the time that message gets back to you, it should be the same. But often it is not, right? Because people mishear things or just a miscommunication in general. So the Byzantine general army was was attacking the castle one day and at one mission that they were on, and they had that same problem, right? Not being able to relay a message around to all the troops. And if all the troops don't attack at the same time, they would lose. So it's important to have proper decentralized systems by which all parties understand the message. Next slide. So basically, when done correctly, and blockchain and decentralization will enable trustless systems without the middleman. Next slide. So let's talk about finance now, right? I just recapped blockchain for a reason, right? To highlight the impact on finances and how in this space there's a lot of reliance on the middleman, right? Because we don't trust uh, what used to be the number one way of transacting with one another, which was bartering, right? And that led to gold. But as these systems developed, people got more some people got more innovative with different ways, but also some systems got more taxing, right? So for example, when we moved from metal coins to paper money, a lot of organizations were created to house the gold, and they started charging a tax on holding that gold, right? Or they started charging insurance on holding that gold, hence creating more costs or overhead fees or taxation against the value of your money, right? And then we started issuing credit, right? That again created more taxation or more overhead fees to your money because, now the bank can, or the banks can print money out of thin air to compensate for the money that's not technically there, right? So at the point we're at now, money can be entered into a computer, and we can update or we can remove debt off a balance sheet, which is pretty dangerous by the stroke of keys. And hence the reason why we need to move money away from being centrally controlled, right? Because this is a global issue. And especially here in the United States, as we make changes to our money, it impacts the entire world. So, um, and that's starting to become an issue when you see how other countries are not enjoying the feeling that happens when we make changes over here. And we have organizations like the BRICS now looking for different alternatives. So, um, blockchain, right? We want to move away from centralization. We want to make sure this is immutable, and we want to make sure it's transparent. Next slide. So I mentioned some of these issues already, but let's just talk about how uh, money, where are all the points today where you pay additional funds that you don't need to pay, right? So let's just say you are going to buy groceries from the store, right? You pay from your bank, right? You may pay via your phone, you may pay via a card, right? Or you may pay via a check. Right there, you have two charges. You have one charge from the bank having to release your money to the merchant, right? And then you have another charge based on the instrument that you choose to use. Like if it's and this is not always a bad thing. Like let's say you pay with credit card, there's a credit card fee, right? But then there's also a network fee, right? So that network that it crosses over the PSP, that off payment service provider, that they also result in a fee, right? So by the time the merchant who's selling the food or who makes $100 a day, right? The average merchant lose about, for every $100 made in store, the average merchant loses about $3 to this entire process, right? So that's not fair. And then on top of that is the double spend issue. So double spend issue I mentioned earlier is the issue of accounting by which um, the money that has been spent still appears that it's on the books, and then it's spent again. This is a big issue, especially in upper level, higher accounting, where technology is technically not crossed over fully to digital systems where we have like immutable ledgers, right? Where some stuff is still analog, and hence we could end up running into this double spend issue. So with the way it happens today with blockchain, how blockchain addresses this is that, as Ahmed highlighted, right, once a transaction or a spend happens, that is issued on chain, and that is issued with a timestamp, right? And then that is committed to the network. And then once that transaction or a double spend tries to take place again, the participants on the network already have that transaction timestamped into a mutable ledger, and hence therefore denying that double spend. Next slide. So this is why blockchain is going to be important, right? Especially from a financial perspective, it's going to create, uh, it's going to increase security, right? It's going to create transparency. I already talked about the decentralization, easy for verification. We're going to see why it's easier when we look at the Block Explorer in a second. And then it's going to take away from what we had to deal with, like this trust issues, and we had to go to the federal banks to reserve or to verify everything. Hence the reason why we have so much overhead costs with our finances today. And you go to the next slide. So this is where we're about to get into a demo real quick. But before we do that, I just want to provide some pre-information, right? So I'm going to show you how to get a wallet, and then I'm going to show you how to put some money on it, and then use a block explorer to look at that funds, right? So we talked about the financial use cases for this, and it's important to recognize that when you want to step into a space where you start to manage your own finances, right? There are a number of things you need to know, right? Obviously, one is to protection of your private keys. Ahmed mentioned these as your most important part of your wallet, right? Do not share your private keys, only your public keys, because this is where people can send money to. So I'll show you what that looks like when I go into the Block Explorer. But also the other thing to understand is exploring Block Explorers as well, as they provide the transparency and the data that you need to ensure that what you're doing on chain is actually happening. So some key features of a Block Explorer, right, is that the transaction details, which I'll show you, block information, your wallet, gas fees that are being tracked, even the smart contract that you're interacting with. Again, this is all for the importance of transparency, security, and even incentivizes development, and ensures that if you are so curious that you want to follow your transactions, then you can do that as well. Next slide. So before we do the demo real quick, I just want to highlight what a block information looks like. So block height is the block number, right? That's the hash that Ahmed talked about. I talked about the timestamp, right? And then you'll be able to see the transactions in this block, as well as the fee, the address of the person that was participating, and then the size of that block, as well as the gas. I'll show you this when I make my transaction. I'll show you guys all of this. So let's get started. If I may, I can take over the screen share. Okay. Okay. hope everybody can see my screen. So for the sake of time, I'm not going to install my wallet from scratch, but I will walk you through the entire step and you can follow along or you can take notes. And so MetaMask is one of the wallets, right, that you can have to operate online and manage your funds. If you go to metamask.io, from here you can download your MetaMask. I already have mine installed here. So let me go ahead and log in. So when you set up your wallet, it becomes an in-browser, or at least on your computer, it's a browser. And you can see your wallet address here. You can see your balance here. And you can see all the blockchains that you have added to your wallet. I have added a lot because I've been doing a lot in this space for a while. So there's a number of blockchains that I'm leveraging: Ethereum, Linear, Polygon, Base, Postchain, ZK, Binance, Avalanche. These are all blockchains. But for the purpose of this, I'm going to focus on these test networks. So if you're a developer, you're aware of environments, right? Or like pipeline or CI/CD. So the dev environment, right, equivalent of blockchain is the test nets. So you can do work on Sefolia and not have to necessarily actually spend real money. So that's what we're gonna do. So I'm gonna go get some base Sefolia ETH. I'm gonna copy my wallet address and I'm gonna go to a site, go to a base Sefolia site. I'm going to use alchemy.com/faucet/base Sefolia. There's many different faucets, but a faucet is, imagine if you're going to get some water and you turn it on and they give you some water. So it's basically a tap for you to get some currency if you're testing things on a DevNet, on your test net. So once I enter my address, it's going to send me, well, let me do the reCAPTCHA first. Oh, okay. I need a balance of one main ETH. Okay. That's annoying. Uh, 1 second. Okay. 1 second. Hold on a second. Let me stop sharing my screen and then I'm going to give this wallet some funds. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, while Joe is like funding the uh, account, I have also shared a link in the chat. You can also use this one, but it requires some time for do some competition and then give you faucet at the end of like an hour or something.
1 second. I'm just sending myself some funds. Okay. That should do it. Okay. I'm going to share my screen now. Okay. So I've sent myself some funds. So I'm gonna go ahead and paste the wallet address in here again. Can you see my, I hope everyone can still see my screen.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, do this again. Okay. So now it is sending me some Safola ETH. So if I go to my wallet, you can see that this number should increase in a second. And we can double check what happened on the Block Explorer, right? So I'm going to take this address here. And I mentioned that block explorers are utilized for tracking transactions. So right now I'm on base.blockscout. We're going to look at Blockscout, which is a block explorer, right? We can look at different transactions. Here, we can look at different blockchains as well. I'm going to just quickly show you a production transaction, right? Here you can see someone did some Uniswap activity. I mentioned stuff like the transaction hash, the block number, status, which is successful, right? Timestamp, um, the from address. You can see the smart contract that it interacted with, the tokens that were transferred, right? They transferred some wrapped ETH for some loose LUCE, and all these details we'll go through later in further detail. But right now, I just want to show you the transaction that this happened on my end, right? So I'm just going to go to testnet base blocks out. So from here, I'm going to enter the address that I just have, and then we'll see here that 2 minutes ago, right, this transaction took place and I received 0.1 ETH, right? And that's what made that number go up there. So this is, again, I mentioned all these fields just a second ago, but this is an example of a transaction that took place on the blockchain when I requested some funds, and then it got recorded, and you can check it out via a block explorer like Blockscout. So I'll pause there, but that's all I wanted to have today as far as demo and any questions. And we can, again, you can use MetaMask for your wallet. And Ahmed just mentioned some other ones as well. And you can also use Block Explorer as well as other faucets that Ahmed just mentioned as well.
Yeah, Joe, there's a question in the chat like, what is faucet and is it like demo money?
Yes, it is like demo money, and it's basically a site that you go to get the demo money.
All right. So if there are
I
more questions,
put
you can.
all these. I'm gonna put all these links in the chat real quick.
All right. So thank you so much for that, Joe. Thank you, Ahmed. This session has been very, very informative. Let me just give me 1 second and let me just share my screen back. Uh, I don't know where we left off. But then again, the practical implementations, Joe, th those are really helpful. You know, a demo often at times helps more than just words and pictorial representations. This is really informative for those that are just looking to enter the space, you know, slowly picking up. Um and guys, for everyone that's tuned in over here, this is an opportunity for you to learn from the best of the best, the people that are growing, the people that are entrepreneurs in the space. Any questions that you guys have, you can drop those in chat, or if there are more detailed questions that, you know, take more than a couple of minutes and it's a query, I think Joe and Ahmed would be kind enough that they can address that later onwards. And, you know, feel free and join our Discord or our community WhatsApp group. I feel like it was, you know, brought to my attention that a couple of folks wanted the recording for the session. That will be shared with all the participants that join the Discord group. Discord, again, I like to emphasize to all of the folks, it's a powerful place compared to other platforms, WhatsApp or any other place. You can share a lot of content. There's a lot of management of information. It's a good place to join, and considering the space, it would just get you started. So join Discord, scan the QR code if you want to learn more. Drop any questions over there. I think we only got one question. That what is faucet? Is it like demo money? That is something that, you know, they addressed. Apart from that, yeah, I think that pretty much sums it up. Our second webinar is going to be on the 21st of November at 5:30 p.m. Pakistan Standard Time and 12:30 p.m. UTC. You can follow us on our social media with Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. We are um, we are pretty active there to keep you up to date on any of the things that are going on at Empeer Den. If any participant has any question, they want to ask, they want to unmute their mics, they want to be vocal, now would be the time. If not, we can just wrap this up. All right. I think that pretty much sums everything up. We don't
Yeah,
have any questions.
yeah. Wait,
Thank you
we
so
have got a
much.
question. We
Yeah.
have got a question
Okay,
in the
okay.
chat. Yeah,
Maybe I just didn't check the chat. We have
yeah.
got a question. So, if we can buy and sell coins in a wallet, what's the purpose of exchanges? Joe, would you like to take that?
Yeah, I can take that. So when you buy and sell coins in the wallet, you're technically not buying and sell it. You're swapping, and when you're swapping coins, it's looking for routers that will exchange or facilitate the swap for you. So it will look across. Imagine, if you're going to a new country, right, and you're going to the uh the place where you exchange the money exchange, right? That's more of what's happening in your wallet. When you go to exchange, it's more of like the stock market, more in the regards where, because it's actually based on market makers and order books. So uh that's the key difference, right? It's more of a trading platform on an exchange that facilitates the exchange of the funds via order books versus uh, facilitating it via uh, like peer-to-peer uh, uh, swapping on not peer-to-peer, but rather in your wallet. It's facilitated more by a swap of where you can find the best deal.
All right, Abdullah, I hope that answers your question. And I think we're now short on time, as you know. So, any other questions that anyone else might have, please feel free and reach out to us on Discord or in the community WhatsApp. I will once again bring you guys to this QR code, and afterwards, some moderator would be able to share a link on our social platforms to join as well. You can just look up Empeer then on LinkedIn, and you should be able to find our social there, and we will be sharing our details there as well. So again, thank you so much, Joe. Thank you so much, Ahmed. Thank you, Aram and BIT and IEEE and all of our other contributors to facilitate and come together and essentially just share information that is very valuable and up and coming. So